So what in the world is going on the world stage? It seems like everyone is absolutely losing their mind as we dive today deep into, whoa, is this Judea where Jews live? Or some sort of Arabia takeover where now Arabs will completely take over the whole land of Israel? Well, or as formerly known, Judea. We're gonna dive into this, a deep dive, stay tuned, a lot more coming. Welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of Jew hatred and anti-Israel propaganda, you should have a direct connection to the land and people of Israel. As always, don't forget to subscribe. Go ahead and hit the like button, share, leave us comments, get involved. We want this information to go out far and wide. Go ahead and jump on other social media platforms and get the word out. Don't forget that we're here every Monday through Thursday, so get your news from the Israel Guys. That's what we're here for, is to give you the news that's actually going on here, not the fake and false and the narratives that are going to be taking the world in a horrible direction. My gracious, this show today is just going to be an example of that. Before we dive in here, there's some good news, so I'll just state it as good news first. Israel approved last Sunday a plan to legalize 9 settlements and in addition, 10,000 housing units. Amazing. But what did the world do in response? That was the good news, by the way. The world, so here's the bad news. The world came unglued. They all said, why? Israel, you're in charge of your own building? How could that be? How can Israel, a nation, a sovereign nation, be in charge of its own country? No, we will intervene and say no to Israel because Israel shouldn't be able to say what Israelis do because America needs to say what Israelis do. How idiotic is that? But that's what America came in and said, and that's actually what most European countries also came in and said. And so the bad news is that Israel backed off, and they have pushed back now 6 months. So all of these amazing things that we've already talked about on the show and that was amazing and it was been pushed forward has been pushed back 6 months. Now, will it ever happen? Well, it's been pushed back 6 months. So that's the bad news. And the really bad news is, for me as American, is that Blinken, U.S. Secretary of State Blinken, he's the real guy here. He jumped in and called the boss, Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the PA, that Palestinian. What do we call those guys? They're flat out terrorists. So he calls the terrorist Mahmoud Abbas and he tells him that, hey, listen, don't push forward a bill. You got this new papers that they're putting forth to the UN. Stop! Don't do that. It's going to cause too much craziness in the international world. Stop! Let me work the background and just trust me. This will work. So he calls a boss and talks to him, and he says, "Don't worry, I'll speak to Bibi." And I'll quote him. He says, in an effort, he's going to speak to Bibi in an effort to stop the unilateral Israeli actions on the ground. What are the unilateral Israeli actions on the ground? So in their conversation with Abbas and with Blinken, we'll find out what the unilateral actions on the ground are. It's continued settlement building. That's unilateral action on the ground. Remember, because Israel's not allowed to decide where they can build and where they can't build in their own sovereign nation, okay? Especially in the areas of Judea and Samaria that they have not yet annexed, that they have not yet declared sovereignty over, although they won the war and it's their territory for all means and purposes. And there's a lot more in that. But this is what they're going to say. They're going to say settlements are the big problem. Demolishing homes of terrorists, the big problem. Raids in cities and villages, meaning taking out terrorists, big problem. And the extrajudicial killings of Arabs. So all those things are basically 4 things that are completely off the mark, ridiculous. But Blinken agrees with Abbas and calls Bibi, and then you have the breakdown. What happens when all this comes down? He's going to send this to the UN to try to get a UN statement against Israel, right? We cannot have Israel building settlements. We can't have Israel taking out terrorists, which basically all three of the other things were. We can't have Israel doing these things, and instead, we're going to try to stop Israel from doing these positive things any democracy in the world would do, protecting its country and building its homeland. We're going to stop them, and instead, we're going to support the terrorists. Okay? I want you to understand, and in addition to their conversation, I will quote him again. In addition to their conversation, Blinken tells Abbas he wants to enhance their security and freedom. You're talking to Abbas, and remember again, Abbas is the king of the terrorists. He is the guy in charge of it. He's the one that decides they will pay their terrorists to kill Jews, and if an Arab kills a Jew, he will pay him. So he's the head of that mafia. Okay, he's the head of it. And Blinken, instead of siding with his ally, Israel, and a democratic nation of Israel, he sides with the terrorists, Mahmoud Abbas, and all of his terrorist factions. And he says the most unbelievable, I can't even get my mind around thing to a terrorist. He wants to enhance their security and freedom. If there's one thing that you will tell a terrorist, the one thing you shouldn't tell a terrorist is that you want to enhance their security and their freedom. You're going to give a bunch of scumbags, literally, enhance security and freedom to do what? To do more of what they want to do, which is kill Jews and actually also kill Americans. That's pretty disturbing for the head of the State Department to be giving such enhancing security and freedom to known terrorist leaders and all of their faction. This is pretty hard that I have to say, and we'll get into more of the story in a minute, that Bibi actually succumbs to his request. We'll get into that. But first, freedom and security. What does this look like? Well, just last week, there was 218 attacks against Israel. You understand that? There's 218 attacks against the citizens of Israel, all endorsed by Abbas, Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the PA, right? The PA, the Palestinian Authority. 4 Jews were murdered. There was 25 shootings. There was 2 stabbings. There was a car ramming. There was 57 rock throwings. That's just to name a few of them. The military had absolutely insane encounters all week with all kinds of craziness going down. They're at war with these people, and Blinken is coming in telling Israel that they need to back off and give them freedom, right? Give them freedom. Why would you give them freedom and more security? These terrorists need to be secure. They need to have security. I want to go into, there's another reason that this is awful, audacious, that Blinken would go this way. Israelis, one of the big reasons that Israelis are not allowed to fly freely to the U.S. is because the U.S. mandates that these terrorists, if it opens its borders, these terrorists must be able to fly freely through the Ben Gurion airport as well. So therefore, Israel has said no. So now, because the U.S. stance on this, Israelis cannot fly back and forth freely to the U.S. They have to go through an unbelievable amount of paperwork just for a normal Israeli ally of America to be able to fly to America is outrageous due to America's support of these terror factions. Israel will never say yes to flying terrorists in and out of the Ben Gurion airport. Anybody else agree that that's a bad idea? That's a horrible idea, and they will never do that. Therefore, under the current administration in America, Israelis won't be flying to America anytime soon on a free visa situation. Very problematic. Hey guys, we'll be right back. But first, if there's one way you could make a really big difference, that would be biting back. Go ahead and bite back. There's some Arab propaganda. Don't buy it. Arab propaganda says that the biblical heartland is now somehow called the West Bank. Guys, if you don't know that, that's true. That's Arab propaganda. It's been going on for now about, 40, 50 years? Stop the propaganda and let's get the biblical heartland straight. This is the biblical heartland of Israel, and there's no better way to really set that in than just going ahead and going on the Israel Guy's shop and buying the Heartland tumbler. You can buy this tumbler. You can drink coffee out of it every morning. You can even take it. It's insulated, so you can drink warm drinks, cold drinks, keeps it cold, keeps it hot, whatever you want. But this is the way you can stand with the biblical heartland of Israel. I can't think of a better way to go ahead and say no to propaganda, yes to the truth, buy the biblical heartland tumbler, and go ahead and start sipping out of it every morning. And remember, let's do this right, and let's do it, and let's stand with Israel's biblical heartland. You can go to the shop, theisraelguys.com, or click on the link in the description below. Type in, go ahead. This is big news here. Hold on for this. This is good. Get 10% off of this by using the promo code Joshua when you check out. Okay, so we're going to talk about this resolution. What happened? Well, the resolution went, the UAE actually drafted a resolution demanding Israel, and I quote, immediately and completely cease all settlement activity in the occupied Palestinian territory. Well, they're a little confused here. This is not occupied Palestinian territory. We'll get that into a minute. But Abbas immediately jumped on the bandwagon and went to the UN Security Council to get this stuff pushed through. Okay, so what was the stuff they were getting pushed through? As I mentioned before, stop settlement building. Number one, stop your war against terrorism. Okay, that's what the UN, that's what they're about, really, is stopping from building in Israel and stopping Israel from defending itself. You get those two things, boy, that's as anti-Israel as you can possibly get, but that represents the UN. It represents, unfortunately, the draft that the UAE sent to the UN. It also represents Abbas, majorly, of course, he's the ringleader of all of this, to the UN. So Blinken stopped it from going to the UN, calls Bibi and gets him to stop everything. All the good that was in motion, Bibi says, let's stop. We have to satisfy, we have to appease the world, and we're gonna hold off. We have to stop now. And he's put a 6-month stop, a hold on demolitions of terrorist houses, a hold off on the 10,000 building permits that we're gonna be building up Judea and Samaria, and all of this now stops. In the meantime, I just had to throw this in because MSNBC headline today was, this Israeli government isn't worth defending at the UN. They see Blinken as defending Israel because he didn't let this resolution go to the UN. He did the background. He just let it, he worked the works of that resolution in the background without letting the world see the paperwork and getting another big smear, which of course it's a big smear on Israel that the UN would pass such a resolution. But the fact is that everything that was in the resolution already has come about anyway, except for the international smear campaign that would have happened along with it. So we can thank Blinken that he stopped the international smear campaign, but we certainly can't thank Blinken for smearing Israel into the dirt once again with pressuring Israel not to put terrorists to the full letter of the law and go to war with terrorism. That's what an ally should be saying. And the reality is Blinken is standing right behind the terrorist. The pay to slay is in full function, and the U.S. administration has given nearly $1 billion to that agency, to that mafia group, I would prefer to call it. So that's America at the moment. Audacious, awful situation. I want to go through a quick history because many of us are wondering, well, so what's really going on? We have the Arabs and we have the Jews, and there's this big war going on. But what's the history? Everybody's getting very confused. In 1967, the Arab world attacked, and that's when this Judea and Samaria thing became a issue. We have 19 years of Israel, the reborn country, the Jewish people, after 2,000 years of exile, they come back to their country, and Israel defends itself and miraculously pushes off all these Arab enemies that tried to absolutely annihilate Israel. So if you forget for a moment that Arabs, as soon as they see a weak point, they attack, and their goal is to annihilate Israel. That was the same in 1967. That was the same before in 1948 when Israel was the reborn Israel was refounded upon the same soil that Israel always was. The 4,000 years of Jewish history go all the way through here. No Arab in the whole universe has any connection anywhere close to that of a Jew. Let's get that straight very quickly. That's the history of Israel. They came back to their homeland. They came back in 1967 to Jerusalem, to Judea and Samaria. The Israeli settlement movement began after they took the land back of Judea, Jerusalem, Judea, and Samaria. These lands, and again, Israel didn't start that war. All these Arab nations aggressively came to attack and annihilate the people of Israel, and Israel responded in defense and pushed the enemies back. They never dreamed that they would be able to step foot again in the parts of Jerusalem and in Judea and Samaria. But that was the miracle that happened. And today, let me just say this. Today we have 100 new settlements, more than 100 new settlements that are springing up all over Judea and Samaria. And in reality, these are 100 new Tel Avivs that have just been birthed upon the mountains of Israel. Why do I say 100 Tel Avivs? Do you guys know that Tel Aviv had the same founding as all of these settlements have? 100 years ago. It was founded in 1909. And Jews, just like today, on the international world, they were kicked out of Tel Aviv. It was founded in 1909. 8 years later, the Turks came in and pushed all the Jews out of Tel Aviv. It was illegal. Jews couldn't be in Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is a Turkish town. Well, it's just a bunch of sand dunes, but Jews can't be anywhere, right? This is the world's approach to Israel. The world comes up with solutions, run the other way. This is awful. Jewish people have to be sovereign over their own destinies, and that's why Israel's important. That's why the nation of Israel is important. It wasn't until after World War II when the British took over that Jews were allowed to come back to Tel Aviv. So what do we see here? That's why I say we have 100 the beginnings of Tel Aviv's popping up all over Jerusalem, Judea, and Samaria. Jews have rights. They will continue to have rights. And it doesn't matter what Blinken or Abbas or the UAE says, Israel will continue to grow. And you'll see, in 100 years, there'll be 100 Tel Avivs all over Jerusalem, Judea, and Samaria. It's a fact. We will push forward, and the fight will win. Now, you could say, that's not enough, the 4,000 years of Jewish history, all these things, the ties, and we have a world-renowned book that validates all these claims that most of the world appreciates and respects, except for the fact that it points to all of Jewish history culminating here. On the other side, we have history that marks out very clearly the Arab war against the people of Israel, the nation of Israel. That's so clearly marked. But yet, somehow, people today can't separate the fact that this is a war. The Jewish people have fought for this land, and they're as an ancestral homeland for decades, centuries. It goes back forever, 4,000 years of history. It's unlike of any other nation in the world. But yet, the Jew is the one that's supposedly the illegal one here. So let's think about this for a second. Jews under international law, right? They're under an international building freeze now because Blinken and Abbas and the UAE started this little thing and they didn't want it to go to the UN. So now the conservative Jewish pioneering front has been placed this hold, stop building, and the Jews have stopped building. They've stopped building because there's an international building freeze that's just locked in on the land, on the ancient homeland. So Jews can't build in Judea. It's illegal for Jews to build in Judea now for the next 6 months. This will be the case. But on the other side, we have Arabs are building 15 units a week in internationally designated Israeli state land called Area C of the Oslo Accords. Does that make any sense to you? If it does, I don't know, you're off your rocker. Jews can't build in Judea, the ancient homeland. It's illegal now. It's a building freeze. Arabs will continue to build freely. And not only freely, they'll continue to build 15 units a week on internationally designated Israeli state land. And this was not Israel. Remember, I said internationally designated land. This is the Oslo Accords, of which Israel upholds every day. The Arabs spit in the face of the Oslo Accords, and the world there's no concept that that's happening. They don't even know. Area C is being taken over. Area C is what was designated as state land. We'll show a map here on the screen right now. All these areas in yellow and red have been taken over since 2008. The most radical, by far, moment is 2022, when the Arabs went absolutely ballistic all over with all kinds of international support to build illegally. I'm talking about 5,535 units were built in 2022. That's the most drastic amount of buildings in any other year. They're building crazy with millions of dollars of funding from the internationals, and it's going in to do something illegal. The international world is interfering in the relationship with Israel and its neighbors, and it's standing in a full-blown attempt to establish a 23rd Arab state. 22 is not enough. A 23rd Arab state right in the biblical heartland of Israel. This is audacious, unacceptable. I can't even believe it that it's happening. We're talking about 181,317 to the T here, illegal Arab infrastructure structures that have been built in Israeli state land. And the world says nothing about that. They're going to talk about how Israel needs a building freeze because Israelis are building settlements in the area. Let's focus on that. In the area that was designated for Israelis to build in. What? Yeah. Israelis are building in the areas that the international world gave as Israeli state land. Arabs are not. 230,000 Arabs now live in Israeli state land in Area C of Judea and Samaria. My gracious. Yeah, no, that's actually what's happening. Guys, we have to close. I'm getting on a tangent here. We've gone way too long. But I hope you understand what's going on. The last time anything like this happened was, of course, under the Obama administration in 2016. All of this, when the resolutions, Obama, it actually passed when Obama was in. He abstained, and it passed, and the world was, it was a horrific scene on the world stage against Israel. Well, we're again on those days with the Biden administration. We're seeing it again. I want to close with a quick word from Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister that's having to deal with all of this insane amount of headache on the international level. Quoting, the UN Security Council has issued a one-sided statement which denies the right of Jews to live in our historic homeland. Fails to mention the Palestinian terror attacks in Jerusalem in which 10 Israeli civilians were murdered. Ignores the Palestinian authorities' grotesque pay-for-slay policy, which subsidizes the murder of Jews and belittles the evil of anti-Semitism, which has resulted in the slaughter of millions. Thank you, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, for summing this up with the best of words. World, wake up. This is what's going on. I think that sums it all up, guys. Go ahead, subscribe. Let's get the conversation going down below. And as always, tune out the fake news and tune in to what is actually happening here in the land of Israel. We'll be back every day of the week with your direct connection to the land and people of Israel.